Hello dear chess friends, today we will speak about the main variation in slave with a6, and this variation starts with d4, d5, c4, c6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, a6, c5 immediately. The idea of playing c5 is to grasp some space on the queen side and to later on play bishop f4, taking the control over the square e5, and in the future to push the pawns on the queen side b4, a4 and b5. There are two moves for black. He can play knight bd7 or bishop f5. I suggest the variation that begins with bishop f5 and actually easily equalizes for black. Bishop f5, so bishop f4, knight bd7. Now white plays e3, and the line I suggest for black is knight h5, attacking the bishop f4. White has to move the bishop away. He cannot allow black to take on f4 because his pawn structure will be ruined and the pawn d4 will become weak. The only move he can do except of moving the bishop away is knight h4. However, after knight takes f4, knight takes f5, knight g6, bishop d3, black plays e6, knight g3, bishop e7, short castle, and now black plays e5. So after knight f5, short castle, his position is okay. He wants to play bishop to f6 later on. Maybe also, in the next move. If white takes on e7, queen takes e7, this position is again without troubles. Black can try to play with e4, f5, f4, which is in this structure maybe the main idea. He can also try to take on d4, play rook fe8, knight f8, knight e6, attacking the pawn d4. So he has no problems. That's why knight h4 is not good. This move doesn't bring anything. Also, nothing brings bishop g3. Black simply takes. H takes g3, and now he can play any move. He can play h6 to prevent white from playing knight h4. And later on he will play his idea with e5. So bishop g3. To give up the black squared bishop is not good for white in general in this position, because the control over the e5 square is lost. So in the 8th move, the last alternative is bishop g5. Black plays h6. Bishop h4, g5, bishop g3, knight takes on g3, h takes on g3, and simply bishop g7. As in the bishop g3 line, again black has get the black squared bishop of white, and he wants to play e5 and to play on the black squares later on with b6. Because he has a black squared bishop, he has advantage in this kind of position. So the main move for white is bishop e5, which we make as a main variation. Now there is move f6 that is possible to play. However, the simplest way for black is just to go back with the knight to f6. What he wants now is to take on e5, and again to get the black squared bishop and to get a very good play afterwards with g6, bishop g7, to get a good play on black squares. So white has to do something with his bishop, and the most logical move is bishop g3. There are, however, some alternatives. So the main drawback for black, if he wants to play for win, this variation doesn't work, of course, because after bishop f4, knight h5, bishop e5, knight h f6, white can repeat moves. However, if black wants to play for win, then after bishop e5 he can play f6. f6, bishop g3, and e5. This is another variation which is pretty complicated, but it is still possible to play it for black. So we consider the safest way in this clip, which is based on the move repetition knight hf6. So now instead of bishop g3, which is the main line, white can play knight h4. Black reacts with bishop g4, f3, bishop e6. White takes on f6. Black can take with a pawn, opening the e file for later. So now he threatens g5 because the knight is hanging on h4. So white has to play f4. Black on his side has to play f5. Knight goes back to f3. Bishop e7, bishop d3, short castle, g6. Later black wants to play rook e8, threatening the e3 pawn. He can also try to play with b6, a5. His idea is to play again on black squares. The bishop e6 looks a little bit terrible, but white can not really use this fact. So his bishop on d3 is not really better because he's also restricted by black pawns that all stay on white. So these two bishops are both the same active, and the position is okay. Black has enough counterplay.